My daughter kicked me out, took my jewelry, and said, "You'll die alone." A week later, she came home, and her key didn't fit. The letter on the door made her knees give out. My name is Daniel Costa. I was 68 and a jeweler. I learned the trade sweeping my father's floor and filing rough edges off cheap chains. I ran a small shop and kept clean books. My wife died 3 years back. I kept the house as she left it. I kept the shop sharp. I had 2 grandchildren who liked to pick stones out of the sorting tray. I had one daughter who used to help at Christmas rush, hands steady, eyes quick. A week before the key failed her, she told me to leave my own house. She stood in the doorway with her arms crossed and a fixed smile. She said I was in the way. She said the house needed new energy. She said my tools should do some good, in her words, not mine. She reached for the safe code I had once shared during my surgery year. She used it without shame. She took finished pieces because they are easy to move. She left tools because tools ask for work. Her boyfriend leaned in the hall. New shoes, fresh haircut. He watched value, not labor. He asked how fast, not how good. He grinned when she said we. I heard the hurry in both of them. Greed does not wait. Impatience makes hands careless. Envy makes the wrong choices look smart. I did not argue. I watched. I let their words show me who they were. I felt my right thumb shake, the small tremor that comes by noon most days. It reminded me to slow down and put things in order. I do well with order. Paper holds when people do not. She said, "You should be grateful." I did not answer that. Gratitude is earned. Theft is not. I stepped out with a small duffel in my keys. The door shut behind me. The bolt slid. Through the curtain I saw her face, quick glance, then gone. She wanted speed and no record. I gave her quiet. The quiet would carry further than a fight. I walked to my car, sat, and held the wheel until my hands settled. I thought about the house deed in the kitchen drawer. I thought about the safe deposit box at the bank and the appraisals locked in it. I thought about the tiny maker's marks hidden under clasps and inside bezels where sweat does not reach. I had work to do. This is how it started. She shut the door on me. Wood, paint, a hard stop. The chain caught. I stood with my duffel on my own porch. The bag held 2 shirts, a shaving kit, and my shop keys. The boards creaked under my heel. Inside, a drawer slammed. A man's voice joked about catching the game. The television came on too loud. I knocked once. "I will come back for my papers and tools when you are calm," I said. "Do not," she said through the door. "We are taking care of things now. Do not make this ugly. You should be grateful." Her tone had no doubt in it. She wanted control and a clean stage. She wanted me to give way, then vanish. The words sat with me. I kept my voice low. "I will return," I said. "We will talk." "No," she said, quick. The chain rattled. Then nothing. I stood a minute longer. No neighbor came out. No one said a word. I walked down the steps. My bad knee bit on the last one. I did not flinch. I got into the car and looked back once. The curtain moved again. She was watching for a scene. I did not give it to her. Silence would do more for me than shouting. I started the car and eased off the curb. I drove to the end of the block and parked. I looked at the house in the mirror. It was still mine on paper. That mattered. Paper keeps time better than memory. I held the steering wheel and counted 3 breaths. I felt the shift. The life I knew had snapped. I was not going to handle this by habit. I was going to handle it by record. Power moved from habit to shock. I called her from the corner. I wanted the timestamp on my phone. I wanted her words recorded clean. She picked up fast. "What?" she said. "I will come tomorrow," I said. "I will take my papers and my tools. Then we will talk." A man laughed near her. He did not pull back from the phone. That told me he felt safe. She did not mute him. That told me she wanted me to hear him. "You will do nothing," she said. "The house needs someone who can keep it alive. You are old, Dad. You cannot handle the stairs. You will die alone if you keep acting like this." I let the words land. They were not heat. They were policy. She had cut me out. She said "we" again. I did not hear any shame. "Say that to my face," I said. "Not with him in the room." She laughed. "You do not get to tell me how to act." "You never did. I am your father," I said. The sentence was plain. It did not need decoration. "Not for this," she said. "We will change the locks. Do not come back." The line went dead. I looked at the screen. Her last text to me was from last month, a photo from my granddaughter's recital. She had written, "She wore the bracelet you made." The bracelet in the picture was not the one I made. The clasp was different. The one I made had a clean hinge and a tiny cut that only I would find. That detail mattered. She borrowed image, not fact. I set the phone on the seat. No shouting, no swearing. I thought about the power of attorney I had signed after the surgery. I thought about what sits in my bank box. I thought about what I had in my head that no one else had, where my marks are and how I prove a piece is mine. I turned the key. The engine caught. I pulled onto the river road. Risk rose. I was on my own. The motel was clean. The clerk slid a key card across the desk. I signed with my shop address. I carried the duffel upstairs and set it on the bed. I put my loop on the nightstand. I took out the small envelope that held my safe deposit box key and set it next to the loop. I lined up my tools and my paper. These things never change on me. I ate a vending machine sandwich and drank tap water. At the small table I opened my pocket notebook, dated the page, copied her words verbatim, and printed one word large: alone. I thought of my wife for a moment. Not long. Just enough to know what I was protecting. Then I planned. In the morning I would go to the bank at 9 a.m. I would open the box. I would pull the appraisals and the photos. I would list every piece that should be in the house, safe, and in the shop drawers. I would attach weights and marks and dates. I would sign each page. I called the bank's main line and listened to the hours. I set my alarm for 7 a.m. I turned the television on low and off again. Noise did not help. I checked the loop for any chip. None. I checked the box key again and slid it back into the envelope. Habit kept me from mistakes. I did not sleep much. I did not want to. I wanted the morning. I wanted to stand in the vault and put my hands on paper that could not lie. I wanted to see my notes and match them against the empty spaces in my house. I wanted a path that would not depend on anyone's mood. I turned off the light and waited. Knowledge steadied me. The bank opened at 9. I was inside at 9:02 a.m. The guard nodded. The clerk knew my name. She had bought a chain from me 2 summers ago. "Safe deposit?" she asked. I showed my ID. We went into the vault. In the vault I opened the box, set the loop to my right, the notebook to my left, and pulled the appraisal folder free. 10 years of pages, each with a photo and a note. I worked piece by piece, clear, slow. The diamond tennis bracelet, 5.42 carats, total weight, 18 carat, 21.8 grams, my mark cut under the clasp hinge. The sapphire brooch, center stone 2.11 carats, deep blue, 8 small diamonds at 0.04 each, my mark inside the pin catch. 2 gold bands from a canceled order, 14 carat, 6.2 grams and 6.5 grams, clean inside walls, my mark under the size stamp. The photos showed them fresh on white linen. The notes stated where I put the marks. Those items were not in the box. They should have been in the home safe. I wrote that plainly. I added the insurance policy numbers for each. I wrote the weights again. I wrote dates. The bracelet last serviced October 14th last year. The brooch cleaned March 9th. The bands inspected June 21st. I kept my pen tight and my lines straight. I sealed the list into a new envelope. I signed across the flap. I placed copies of the photos with it. I put the rest back in the box and turned the key. I handed the box to the clerk to return to the vault. We walked out. The big door shut solid behind us. Outside, I photographed the sealed envelope for timestamp, filed it in my briefcase, and slipped the loop into my pocket. I stood in the light and felt steady. If anyone asked what was missing, I would not guess. I would show them. Evidence existed now. I called my attorney from the lot. He fit me in at 1 p.m. I drove slow. No sudden moves. I laid the envelope on his desk and said what happened without extra words. He read. He nodded. He printed a revocation for the medical power of attorney I had given my daughter in the surgery year. I signed it. He notarized it. He made 2 copies. He kept one and handed one to me. We checked the house deed and the shop papers. Both stood in my name alone. Last winter she had said we should streamline ownership. I had moved the talk to weather and never signed a thing. That now saved me time. He called a detective he trusted. He said my name and said theft and family. He told me to drive to the precinct and file the report. He told me to speak only to facts and carry copies. I had those. At the station, a young detective met me in a small room. I put the envelope on the table and walked him through photos and marks. He logged each piece, flagged pawn detail, and handed me case 2510. He told me to keep it on me and to call if anyone reached out. I walked out. The sun had shifted. I called a locksmith and booked early next week for new locks and new codes. He asked if I wanted it done fast. I said I wanted it done right. He said, "Yes, sir," and set Tuesday, 8 a.m. I put the case number behind my driver's license. I put the revocation and my list in the briefcase. I held my keys and felt their weight. The next steps were clear. I was not angry. I was exact. I wanted my name back on everything that mattered, where it belonged. I turned toward my car with a plan. I chose the path. I sat in the quiet and took stock. No driving, no calls, just facts and what they meant. She had thrown me out. She had taken finished pieces. She had used the code I gave her when I was weak. She had told me I would die alone. None of that was heat of the moment. It was a plan. It was speed without care. It was greed with a smile. The boyfriend was the echo. Fast talk, new shoes, no work in his hands. Envy lives in men like that. They want the shine without the grind. I checked myself. I was not blameless in life, but I was clear here. I had built this name one small cut at a time. I had earned every tool and every gram. I had photos, appraisals, and weights. I had marks hidden where only my loupe could teach another eye to see. That was my language. Paper, metal, light. Those do not argue, they prove. I thought of my wife. Not a speech, just the facts of her. Early mornings, coffee in a paper cup, her ring. She kept the house honest without a word. I could do the same now. Keep the name clean. Keep the place right. Keep the work straight for the grandchildren who would come after me. My daughter's words tried to shrink me. Old. In the way. Alone. I measured them against the record. Deed in my name. Shop in my name. Appraisals with dates. Photos with marks. The scale tipped my way. Not because I was louder, because I was exact. I drew a line in my head. I would not brawl. I would not plead. I would not trade favors in kitchens or on porches. I would press charges and stand by them. If she wanted what I had built, she would have to learn the work and meet the rules. This is not going to be revenge for sport. It will be a repair. An answer to theft and to a sentence meant to bury me. I'm going to fight back for the name on the door, for my late wife, and for the grandchildren. You won't believe how intense it's going to be soon. But before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I started with the insurer, I gave the case number and the list with photos and weights. The agent asked how I could prove the pieces were mine. I said, "Marks under a clasp hinge, inside a pin catch, and undersized stamps." I kept my voice even. She flagged the policy and noted each mark location. She gave me a claim number and told me to send the photos again by email. I did it before we hung up. I called 3 pawn shops I had dealt with over the years. Men who know what a clean hinge looks like. Northside Pawn, East Market Collateral, a small place on Perry. I said there was a police case, and the pieces had invisible marks. I gave the case number and the cut locations. I did not give the exact spot. You never give more than you need to. Owners took my number. They promised to watch. They always say that. It still helps. I scanned the appraisals into one file, backed it to a thumb drive, and sent my attorney a copy. He replied with one word, "Received." Then I called the alarm company. I removed my daughter's code and her phone from the contact list. I set my own back to primary and added the precinct desk as a secondary. I asked for a written confirmation. It hit my inbox 5 minutes later. I checked the bank. I canceled the shop card she used for family purchases. I asked for a fraud alert on any attempt to open accounts using the shop's name. The manager printed a note and had me sign. I watched him put it in the back file. Paper in a drawer has more weight than a promise at a counter. I put the documents back in my briefcase in order. Police report copies, insurance claim number, alarm confirmation, bank note. I did not feel lighter. I felt arranged. Every step put another piece under a rule that did not care who raised their voice. When I locked the shop and stepped onto the sidewalk, I knew I had tightened the net from 4 directions. Insurance, police, bank, alarm. None of them would win this alone. Together they would hold. The system was in motion. The phone rang while I was making coffee at the back sink. Her number. I let it go to voicemail. The tone was sweet the way sugar hides medicine. "Dad?" I overreacted. "Let us reset. We decided the shop will be mine when you retire. That was always the plan." I called back. "Put that in writing," I said. She laughed. "You do not need paperwork with your own child." "That is exactly when you need paperwork," I said. "Come say it to my face." Without him there, the line went quiet, then the boyfriend's voice slid in. "Old man, stop making this a thing. Hand off the keys, everyone wins." "Who are you on the lease?" I asked. Click. She came back alone. "You always make things difficult." We were trying to help. "You are alone. Let us carry this." "You carried my bracelet to a counter," I said. "Do not call it help." Her voice hardened. "You called the police?" "Family does not do that. Pull the report, or I will say you hit me." I noted the words. "Say it," I said. "Then read the cameras across the street and the timestamp on my call to the precinct." "We will both stand where the records stand." Silence. Then a hiss I knew from her childhood, the sound she made when a rule held and she could not bend it. "You will regret this," she said. "No," I said. "You will learn from this or you will keep walking." She hung up. Texts followed. "We can work this out." Then, "You owe me after all I did during your surgery." Then, "I have friends who can fix a lock." The last one told me more than the others. It told me she still believes speed beats structure. I set the phone down and wrote the messages into my notebook with the times. Her words tried to pull me back into a kitchen argument. I stayed on the paper. Masks fully slipped by now. I met my attorney at 9:30 a.m. We did not talk much. He had the documents ready. An irrevocable trust in the grandchildren's names, with me as trustee until death or incapacity. The house and the shop would be owned by the trust. I would keep lifetime use and full management. After me, the trust would move to them. My daughter's name was not there. He slid the deed transfer drafts across the desk. "Once recorded," he said, "it is not a conversation." We walked through each clause. Who could change what? Who could not? A line that blocked any transfer without two trustee signatures. Mine now. Theirs later. Clean controls. I signed where tabs stuck out. He notarized. He kept the originals in a fireproof drawer with a simple label. Costa Trust. I liked the simplicity of that. He asked about the shop contents. I wrote a short schedule of major tools and fixtures. The buffer, the rolling mill, the ultrasonics, the safe. I added a line that any finished inventory on hand at death would pass with the shop. He nodded. He had seen people fight over less. He looked at me. "You understand," he said, "this will shut the door on her claims." "That is the idea," I said. "I am not shutting a door on a person. I am shutting a door on a behavior." He smiled without warmth. It was a professional smile. "Good line," he said. "Say it again if anyone asks." I left with certified copies and a stamped filing receipt. I felt the click that matters, the one no lock changes alone can give, the paper that would sit in a public drawer and outlast any story someone tried to tell in a kitchen. When I reached the sidewalk, I texted my daughter one sentence. Ownership is no longer a family vote. I put the phone away. This was the revenge in the shield. I called the bank and removed her as an authorized user on the shop account. The manager confirmed on a recorded line. I asked him to send an email and a letter to the shop address. I wanted 2 trails. He did both before we hung up. I logged into the payment processor and changed passwords. I adjusted staff permissions. There was only one staffer, me, but the settings mattered. I shut off any automatic transfers to a card ending in numbers she had used once. I set alerts for any transaction. In the evening, the alert hit. Someone tried to run the canceled shop card at a department store in town. Declined. The bank called me, then said they would note the attempt under the fraud alert. That told me she had kept the number and planned to use it. Her messages turned from sweet to angry, to pleading, back to angry. "You are ruining the family. You owe me. I will go to court. Let me in now." Each one made the next step easier, not harder. I stood at the house door, leveled the letter in its sleeve and pressed the tape hard on the corners. Then I tested the new key twice. Clean turn. The streets were quiet. Northside Pawn called the following day. "Danny," the owner said, "I have a bracelet someone wants to sell. Tennis style. Clasp is too clean for its age. You want to come look?" "Stall," I said. "Police first." I gave him the case number again. He grunted. "Already called." I drove, but not fast. I did not need to be the first man on the scene. I needed to be the man with the facts who walked in when asked. The detective called from his car. "We are on Perry," he said. "We will hold it up and ask questions. Do not enter until I say." At the shop I kept moving. Busy hands keep a mind steady. If they needed me, I would bring what mattered. If they did not, my papers were safe where they were. The phone buzzed. A photo came in from the pawn owner. He had a way of taking shots that showed the truth. Close, clean, no filter. I zoomed in and saw the clasp. The hinge was a match for my own work. A tiny difference in the way I file down the inside edge so it does not bite a wrist. Most people never see it. I see it in a dark room. I wanted to drive over and grab it. That is how men lose cases. I stayed put. The detective sent a text. "Wait." I waited. He sent another. "Person with bracelet also has 2 gold bands." Then a third. Says girlfriend asked him to make a sale. I wrote the time down. I wrote the words. I breathed once and sat on the stool. I thought of the clear sleeve on the door and the way the tape had held to the wood. I thought of my wife's band card and the neat ink that said polish only. I thought of my granddaughter's hands riffling my sorting tray for blue stones. The phone rang again. "Bring the loop." the detective said. And your notes. The next confrontation was there. I arrived at Northside Pawn and saw the detective by the counter. The owner stood with his arms folded. On the laminate lay a diamond tennis bracelet in a clear bag, 2 gold bands in another, and a velvet box with a sapphire brooch. My breath stayed even. I set my briefcase down and took out the loop. Do your thing, the detective said. I put the bracelet under the light and slid the loop into place. I looked at the hinge. There it was. A tiny cut where no sweat could reach. The mark I cut when I finished the bracelet last year. I said, 5.42 carats, 18 carat, 21.8 grams, mark under the hinge. He nodded and wrote it. I pointed to the exact spot with a wooden pick and let him look. He took the loop and bent in. I see it, he said. Photograph that. The owner did, steady hands, clear angle. I opened the gold band bag. The size stamps were clean. Inside, just left of the stamp, my mark sat like a fingerprint no one else could put there. 6.2 grams, 6.5 grams, I said. He wrote and photographed. I did the same with the brooch. Inside the pin catch, in the shadow where the spring sits, my marks ran true. Center stone 2.11 carats, 8 at 0.04, I said. He wrote again. The buyer stood in the corner, arms crossed, chin up. He tried small jokes. No one laughed. When he realized no one would, his mouth set. The detective asked him for a name. He gave it. Then he gave my daughter's name without any push. She sent me, he said. The room did not shift. It settled. The detective sealed the bags and wrote the case number on each. He read the buyer his rights. He told him to sit on the chair by the wall. The man sat. His legs kept shaking. Mine did not. The detective looked at me. You pressing charges? He asked. Yes, I said. He nodded. We will book him. We will call her in. He handed me a receipt for the seizures and told me where to come for restitution paperwork if it went that way. I put the receipt in my briefcase with the appraisals and the notes. Evidence was now verified. 7 days after she shut me out, she came to the house. I saw her from the shop window and drove over. I parked a house down and watched. The light was good. The street was empty. She walked up the steps with a tote bag. She slid her key into the lock. It stopped. She tried again. She wiggled. The deadbolt did not turn. She stood still for a second, as if the lock would change its mind if she gave it time. She looked up and saw the clear sleeve. She read the first line. Case number 2510. She read the second. The trust's name and the recording stamp. She went back to the lock, then back to the letter. She read the line about appointment-only removal with police present. She read the trespass statute citation. She read the line about criminal charges pending. She called me. I did not pick up. She texted, "What is this?" I did not answer. The letter answered for me better than my voice would. She tried the key again. She swore once, soft, like she had bumped a shin. She went back to the letter and traced a line with her finger, the way she used to read when she was a girl and did not want to miss a word. Her mouth opened. She looked up and saw me. Her mouth formed the start of my name, then stopped. She went back to the letter, the case number, the trust, the appointment time, the ban. She knew what it meant. There was nothing to argue with. There was nothing to shout down. The paper did not bend. She put a hand on the rail and tried to stand. Her legs did not hold. Her legs gave out. Her eyes were red, but dry. Her tote still hung off one arm. She took a step toward me. "Stop," I said. "Do not come closer." "You cannot do this to family," she said. The words were low, steady. "We can fix this." "Give me a key. We will talk inside." I kept my hands at my sides. "You made it business the day you used my code and took my work to sell," I said. "The paper answers you now." That lock, she said, and pointed with the tote. You had no right. I had every right, I said. Read the deed. Read the trust. Read the law on the paper in your hand. She shook her head. I needed money. You have piles of it in cases and drawers. You sit on it. You hoard. I built it, I said, and I give it where it belongs. You know that. You know where the charity checks go. You know the repairs I paid for in this family. You took what was not yours. You would call the police on your own daughter? She asked. Her voice cracked for the first time. I already did, I said. They have your friend. They have the pieces with my marks. There will be a court file. You can add your words to it there. She stared at the ground. Then she looked at me with a face I used to know, when she was 10 and wanted me to undo the rules because she was sorry. Sorry is not the same as right. Dad, she said, quiet. Please. I am not closing a door on you, I said. I am closing a door on theft and on threats. That is what a door is for. A neighbor's curtain moved. She saw it and stiffened. Appearances mattered to her when someone was watching. She pulled her tote up onto her shoulder like it weighed a stone. You are cruel, she said. No, I said. I am careful. She stood there a beat longer, then walked past me to the sidewalk. I did not turn. I looked at the letter on the door, clear and neat. The situation had finally shifted and would not shift back. The detective called an hour later. We brought him in, he said. He wants a deal. He said your daughter gave him the bracelet, the bands, and the brooch. We will ask her to come in tomorrow. Do you want to press charges? Yes, I said. I want a no-contact order. I want restitution in the record. Come sign, he said. At the station, the forms were plain and blunt. I read every line. I signed where they told me to sign. The detective watched my hand. You are steady, he said. I work with small things, I said. I have to be. When I stood to leave, he said, most people back off at this point. I am not most people, I said. I have grandchildren who will live with what I do or fail to do here. He looked at me in a way that was not pity and not praise. It was the look men give when a job is clear. He handed me a copy of everything I signed and a date for the initial court appearance if it came to that. I walked out into evening light. The world looked the same. The line between us did not. The paper spoke now. If she called, it would be logged. If she pushed, the door would hold. The fight had left the porch and entered the file where it belonged. Consequence was formal now. 2 more days had passed. I woke before dawn and sat at the kitchen table with my notebook open. I read what I had written since the first night. Dates, times, weights, marks. I put my wife's photo next to the notes and looked at her face for a long minute. I told myself why I was doing this, out loud but quiet. Not to win a fight in a hallway. To keep our name clean. To keep the work straight. To leave the grandchildren something that does not wobble when someone pushes it. I checked myself for rage. I felt anger, but it was not the kind that makes hands shake. It was a steady refusal. I wrote a line under the last entry. I will speak in records. I will not trade in scenes that helped. It kept me in my lane. At court, I sat with my attorney. People shifted in plastic chairs and stared at phones. My daughter sat across from me with her boyfriend's public defender. She wore neat clothes. Her eyes were red. She did not look at me long. When she did, it was quick and sharp, like a test. The boyfriend kept his chin up as if that could raise his price. You learn a lot from grip and posture. Inside, the judge looked at the file, not the faces. My attorney moved through everything quickly. He kept it clean. No heat. The boyfriend's lawyer took the deal. He pled. The judge accepted. The boyfriend stared at the floor and nodded at the right times. He could play obedient for a discount. The judge turned to my daughter and spoke to her lawyer. Your client is referred to a program, he said. No contact with the complainant. No presence at the business or residence. Restitution set in schedule. Violation will bring sanctions. It did not feel like a win. It felt like a line finally drawn. I thought of the bracelet under a hinge, the cut only I would see. The system had made a mark of its own, clean, visible, and binding. The boundary wasn't a threat. It had already become law. The property office called a week later. The bracelet, the bands, and the brooch were cleared for release. The officer handed me the bags. They were cool to the touch. I did not celebrate. I put them in my briefcase between the appraisals and the trust copy and drove to the shop. Under the bench lamp, I opened each bag and checked each mark. The hinge cut, the pin catch, the tiny stamp under the size numbers. All true. I wrote a short entry in the book. Recovered. Released to owner fax only. Thursday at 10, as the letter had said, she came with one officer. I unlocked the door at the exact hour. I kept the conversation on paper. "You may take what is yours and nothing else," I said. There were kitchen items, clothes, some photographs, no tools, no shop items. 20 minutes and it was done. No scenes and no pleading. She tried one soft "Dad" and stopped when she saw my face. I held the door and then closed it. The lock turned once, clean. Back home, I walked the room slow. In the bedroom, I put my wife's photo back on the dresser. I held it steady for a second the way I hold a piece under a light. On the dining table, I closed my notebook. It served its purpose. I took the old locks from the bag the locksmith had given me and put them in a box on a shelf, not as a trophy, as a record of a change made at the right time. The house was in order. All agency returned to me. I thought of my wife standing where I stood, coffee in a paper cup, hair tied back. She never asked for shine. She asked for honest work and a steady table. I felt her beside me in the quiet, not as a ghost, but as a standard. I set the stone, tightened the prongs, and checked the seat. It held. I held the ring in my palm and let myself feel what I had not let in for days. Loss, yes, but also pride. I had not shouted. I had not begged. I had taken the hit and answered it with paper and patience. I had kept our name. I had kept the door. I wrote to my grandchildren. Fewer words this time. This house and shop carry our name because names should mean something. If you come here one day, you will earn your place the way I did. Doors are not just wood and locks. They are the lines we keep so we can live right with each other. I added one promise. I will be here for you, and I will teach you. I took the bracelet from its tray and turned it in the light. The tiny cut under the hinge caught just so. A mark no one else would notice. I put the letter, the trust copy, and the bracelet together in the safe. I closed it and stood with my hand on the door a moment, not to worship things, to honor what they stood for. I bought a new kettle and coffee. Small choices, but they felt like breath after a long hold. My wife would have loved it. The phone rang once in the afternoon. The detective said the order had been served. He said the schedule would run as the court set it. He thanked me for being clear. I thanked him for doing his job. At dusk, I stepped onto the porch and switched on the light. It was not a welcome sign. It was a promise to myself. I had kept what mattered, and I would keep keeping it. If a threat comes wrapped in, "You'll die alone," do you chase comfort? Or stand by the record even if you stand alone? Share your thoughts in the comments.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.